and say,
Well,
right.
the character of all these actions, I call it the Canute policy, because people of my generation all know the story of
Yes.
King Canute. But I think increasingly people now don't know the story of the king who to explain to his courtiers that governments simply don't have that much power, arranged a bit of street theatre on the Sussex shore, and set up his throne and ordered the tide to cease coming in.
Right.
And it ignored him, and he got his feet wet. And the whole point of the story is governments just aren't that powerful.
Right.
The idea that governments can control the spread of a submicroscopic virus has always seemed to me to be pretty, how shall I put it, pretty overstated.
Right.
And that's one of the whole problems with this. It's a ridiculous utopian belief that by going around telling people to stay at home and spraying everyone with gallons of hand sanitizer and putting muzzles on their faces, we can stop the spread of a disease which has spread naturally among us anyway. And it was long ago, it seems to me, quite out of control as far as spread is concerned. And they seem to enjoy the power which this has given them over us, to order us about. Don't go there, don't do that, wear this, walk along this line, stay at this distance from everybody else, don't go to work, stay off the trains, whatever it may be, don't go on holiday, don't go on the beach. An endless series of barked announcements say don't do this, which, as far as I can see, have absolutely no effect whatsoever on the number of people who've died from the disease, which is largely stoked by what appears to have been a major piece of incompetence over care homes earlier on in the
Well, they also now say that they think,
and didn't.
But they also now say they think a lot fewer people died of COVID than they said they did in the first place. But also, if you go back to the beginning, I seem to remember at least 3 to 4 members of the cabinet saying at those briefings, in the end, everybody will get this virus. And I mean, I haven't seen them retract that yet.
Well, it did, and maybe so. The whole theory of herd immunity and all the rest of it is that people have varying views about what level of a population has to have it before it takes place. But if this is what happens when the government continues to imagine, in my view falsely, that it can control the spread of the disease, then I think we are again compelled to look at Sweden, where they have allowed the disease to spread among the population and create normal immunity, where they're pretty much through it. Where although they also messed up their care homes and therefore have a far higher level of deaths than they should have done. That wasn't caused by their decision not to go for tight controls. It was caused by messing up the policy on the care homes, and in general, Sweden has come out of this considerably better off than we have, and I think that it is the example everybody else should now be looking to. And I would have thought, as a rational person, that people seeing the government flailing around, suddenly banning them from going on long-planned and much hoped-for holidays, that they're in the hands of people who simply don't know what they're doing, which has been the case from the start.
Well, I suppose it's not quite correct to say they're banning them from going anywhere. They're just saying if you do go, and if you are there, you'll have to do a quarantine when you come back. But the quarantine itself...
That means people having to face quite possibly...
Yeah, but it's not a ban. No, I know. No, listen, I'm not disagreeing with you, but the thing I find extraordinary as well is that when the original quarantine was imposed, the one that they dropped a little while ago so people could go on holiday, there were so many exemptions to it that there was literally 2 pages worth of exemptions, including BBC engineers, including pilots of airlines, including people that work for Eurostar, and including migrant workers.
Yes, well, quite. I didn't realise BBC engineers were...
Yes, yeah. I was going to ask you about the BBC.
If by any chance key workers such as myself were exempt, but no, I wasn't.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because I listened to Any Questions. I was pleased to see that finally, after listening to obviously the greatest show in the world here with you and I interacting, that the BBC have finally worked out might be quite a good idea to put you on Any Questions.
I think I must owe a lot of that to you. Well, honestly, I had thought that the BBC had pretty much cut me off. And wouldn't let me speak on this subject at all. And they let me on once on the Today programme to talk about something else for about 35 seconds. Right. But Any Questions, which is I've actually been appearing on unbelievably to me now for a quarter of a century now. it has always been a favourite programme of mine, but my appearances on it have been growing less and less frequent over time. And I had been worried, and I was really quite pleased when I got an invitation. It wasn't, of course, the normal programme, because they don't do that.
No, it's all done remotely, isn't it?
And the BBC headquarters is totally deserted.
Yes, I mean, that's even more bizarre, isn't it? But let's get back to the nanny state, because the quarantine for me is only a quarantine. My daughter's colleague, who was working in Dubai, had to go back to Australia and was put into quarantine. They drove him basically in a government car to a hotel, put him in a room and said, you stay there for 14 days, you don't come out. That's quarantine. You know, what we're offering is a sort of a laissez-faire quarantine. If you feel like it, please try and stay in unless you absolutely have to go out.
Well, there used to be in our trade an expression called going through the motions, of pretending to do something while not actually doing it, right. Which was sometimes the wisest response to the commands of mad executives.
Yes.
And then by the time that it turned out you hadn't done it, they'd forgotten.
Right.
There's an awful lot of going through the motions in the government's actions here. They're pretending to be active without actually really doing it.
Right.
Because they know perfectly well that if they did the things which they claim to be doing seriously, they would actually stop the country dead. I mean, not just jam the brakes on so it can barely move as it is now, but it would actually stop. There wouldn't be any economy. There wouldn't be anything happening at all if they did the things they claim to be doing properly. Genuine quarantine. But the whole point about quarantine is it was always, in the whole history of mankind until now, it was always used to quarantine people who were actually sick and infectious.
Right.
It's never previously been used to quarantine the healthy, who of course are always going to be the great majority, and there are far more of them, and it's extraordinarily difficult to do.
Yeah, and also the logic they seem to be
Stalinist state to do it effectively, which
also
the logic have not yet got.
The logic that they're attempting to use as well is kind of twisted, because I was just talking to a doctor before you came on who, much to your chagrin, I'm sure, said that he was hoping for the normalisation of mask wearing. I said, I've got somebody coming up who's not going to agree with that. But basically, they want to say to you, look, there's no point in us testing you and then keeping you or making you available for work if you test negative, because it doesn't mean that you're negative. In which case, they might as well say everybody could have it, and then therefore everybody should be quarantined and never go out.
Well, this is the thing which has made me reconsider immigration. I had thought that I was too old to do it. But looking at this, I think the normalisation of muzzle wearing is something which quite a lot of people would like to see. And just think about the implications of that. The human face is such a vital part of communications and life. And the idea is being spread that actually for the rest of our lives, we'll be going about in public with half our faces covered. There is something so profoundly unnatural about that to me that it gives me the creeps.
Yeah.
And also I find the sight of people walking about those so distressing. They look so strangled and pathetic.
Right, and there's more of them now.
And submissive.
Yeah.
And I feel I'm surrounded. And the thing, I've been racking my brains as I argue with people about this. What is it that is so frightful about it, and why do I object to it so much? And it came to me that this is actually compelled speech. If you wear one of these things, you are making an expression of support for the government's whole policy. You're saying, I am actually supporting the government's Canute-like policy of trying to control the spread of a virus by extremely oppressive measures on personal life. And it's like being compelled under the threat of a fine to wear a great big badge saying, I support the government and its policy.
Yeah. Well, I would differ from you slightly there. I mean, I would say that would be the case perhaps if you were wearing one all the time. I mean, I take a slightly more relaxed view, which is that if I'm on public transport and they want me to wear a mask, I'll wear one. I don't go on it that often. It doesn't really affect me too much. If I now have to wear one to go into a shop, I'll do it because that's what they want me to do. But I certainly don't agree with the government's policy on everything, and certainly I do not wish to advertise that. And I think you're juxtaposing somebody's willingness to go along with a sort of a herd immunity type view, I suppose, if you want, and you're making them out to be sort of fanatics.
No. Here it is. It's the compulsion. Anybody who wants to wear one of these things, I'm not going to go up to them and berate them for it. I'm not going to try and stop them from doing it. If people actually want to go around for the rest of their lives with half of their faces covered by a piece of soggy cloth, that's for them to do. I can't. But what is the concern is it's the compulsion.
Yeah.
You say, oh, but it's not being asked all the time. But every few days, the places where this is being mandated spreads. Now, for instance, a lot of people didn't notice when the muzzle edict was extended to shops. The rules about transport were also extended. Previously, they'd said you had to wear them when you were on a train, bus, or plane, or boarding them.
Right.
Now, it extends to all railway stations, airports, and bus stations.
What? So you have to wear one on the platform?
You have to wear one on the platform.
Right.
Technically, that is now the law. And remember also, these laws are not being made by Parliament. Parliament is barely functioning. These laws are effectively decrees.
Yes.
And they're not. There's been no discussion, no chance for anyone to lobby the government and say, look, we're not sure about this. Nothing at all.
Right.
My problem with the blood transfusion service, where I'm supposed to be giving blood this afternoon, but the English blood transfusion service has suddenly, in between my booking the appointment and my going for it, has suddenly introduced a requirement that I must wear a face covering to give blood. Now, the bizarre thing about this is the Welsh blood service actually insists that you don't wear a face covering because they believe it to be dangerous.
Right.
They say that they can't see, if your face is covered, they can't see the signs that you might be about to faint,
right,
and therefore injure yourself. So they won't let people wear these things during blood transfusions. So if I can't manage to give blood in London today, which I'm hoping to do, then
will you not give blood then? Will you not give blood if they make you wear a mask?
No, I go to Wales.
All right. It's a long way to go to give blood.
Well, it is, but the people of Wales need blood.
But you'll have to wear a mask on the train.
Well, that's the difficulty, isn't it? Although
we will make America great again.